What is up, my beautiful people? Hope you're all having a tremendous day. Exile451 here with you again for another daily dose of Reddit Happy. Got another rags to riches success story from r/askreddit today that I'm sure you're gonna enjoy. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Now sit back, relax, and let's hear about some rags to riches. So I grew up in a small town. I think this handle of mine goes into some small detail about where I grew up. Anyways, my father was a butcher and my mother worked at Kmart. We lived in California near the mountains and ski resorts and a few hundred dozen extra random tourist spots. As you can understand, $1,500 a month was the rent for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom extended trailer. My parents made a total of $50,000 a year combined. My father was an ex-con. Great guy though, just bad history. He got a job as a butcher from his father-in-law, my grandfather. My grandparents owned the house and charged my parents that kind of money monthly for it. I later learned they were making a very slick profit off the house. The mortgage on the place was only $11.50 a month, and my grandparents made a few extra $100 a month off of my parents. My parents worked very hard. I had a brother and a sister. We had power shut off monthly for 5 days. When we were younger, my parents told us it was normal, but we grew out of that and understood that my parents just couldn't afford power for 5 days. There were times when I didn't see my parents for weeks. They'd get home from work when I'd already be asleep, working insane amounts of hours. I was always a nerd in school. I never went under a GPA of 3.8, even during 7th and 8th grade middle school when I started hanging out with the potheads. High school, I finished a semester of college when I was a sophomore. Later, I graduated valedictorian. When you don't have video games, a computer, or even electricity for a few days at a time, you had a lot of time to just study. When I became a freshman, however, I got a job. I pulled 40 to 50 hours a week while in school, getting paid the 30 hours I needed to keep legal and taxed, while getting the rest as tips. The boss was awesome. Let me eat free there all the time when I was working, and was another father figure for me. I purchased internet for the house, paid for electricity, and put food on the table for my sister and I. My brother was already out of the house. I started learning early my freshman year about web design, then decided I wasn't creative enough to keep with the moving standards of design, and went to development. I was learning all this during the time when we were moving from simple HTML web pages to full-blown applications, during a time when we were starting to do new and better things on the internet. Late my sophomore year, I met my current fiance online. She lived in the Midwest. I lived in the West Coast. We saw each other, with parents around, a few times. She was a nerdy cheerleader, played video games, and was a graphic designer. That year, a teacher rushed me from my locker and begged me to go with them to a field trip to a student council event. Hundreds of kids were going. It should be a fun, free trip out of town to see a city with more than a few hundred people living in it. I was hooked pretty fast. We left the next morning. Teacher, me, and another student headed down the highway at 5 a.m. I spent the weekend at this place, learned a great deal of information regarding student councils and the youth voice in politics. I learned they had a position open for a student council member for the state as a webmaster. I applied, got the position, and was ready to start branching out. For a year, I made frequent trips out of my desert and into big cities like Los Angeles, Sacramento, and San Francisco. It was pretty freaking awesome. I didn't quite fit in though, and I knew it. I was the ratty clothed, bad haircut kid with social anxiety hanging out with sons and daughters of senators and media moguls. They were here for a quick and easy year to add to their experience when they go through Harvard. Fun fact, every one of those kids I was with all went to Harvard, except me. I just ended my junior year, heading out to see my girlfriend graduate. She was a few states over at this point, living with her grandparents while she finished school. Her graduation occurs on my birthday. We go to a small Mexican restaurant and enjoy a small family gathering. On our way home, her at the wheel, we get hit by a car speeding through a red light. Ripped her car in half and threw me out into the street. I survived just fine, if not a little bruised up. Both the girlfriend and I head back to California, and she winds up staying with me at the house. my parents announced to my sister and I that they were divorcing. It was a 3-week ordeal. My mom sleeps on the couch for a few days, claiming back problems, then turns around with papers and demands him to leave the house. By halfway through the semester, my dad was gone and my mom was heading straight into the peak of her midlife crisis at the young age of 40. At this point, 100% of my paycheck was going to keeping the house from falling apart. I started getting offers to schools. Drexel, UC Davis, LSU, BYU, all Cal States, etc. I was working a second job as a web developer for a small local company that consisted of a couple people. I was getting truly interested in the power behind open source languages and the community behind PHP. I started specializing in PHP and MySQL development, learning all of the APIs and keeping my front-end skills, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all up to standards. I accepted my school of choice, which I won't name, because they offered a full ride in writing to me. I was stoked. Went there with a girlfriend and we had dorms literally across from each other. It was a bit of a party school. I wound up learning, but I just wish they had kept up on the full ride offer, because at the end of the semester, I had to sue them for fraud. My girlfriend left the school and moved back to the Midwest. We were having some relationship problems. I moved in with my grandparents, having a hard time looking my mom in the eyes. She wrecked my dad, a hero of mine, down to the point of a DUI and possession charge. He lost his job, lost his insurance, and nearly died after going into a diabetic coma. His massive depression destroyed his life, and he moved to another state where his family lived so he could get back on track. Because of how my mom treated the situation, I have seen my dad 5 times since I turned 18. During my time at my grandma's, I was deciding where to go. I started patching things up with my girlfriend and decided, on a complete whim, to take the money I had left and just freaking move. I lied to everyone. They all thought I was returning for the semester while the lawsuit went down. But I just flew out with all my crap and never returned. The rest of this story is a great one big blur. I moved out to the Midwest at the age of 18 and I am now 21. I started flipping pasta. First job I got right off the plane. I got a job doing web design for a small, stupid company, then got lucky with another job as their PHP developer. Spent a year there, made some connections, and got set up with a recruiting agency. I am now the front-end developer for a huge company in the Midwest and make, if I may say, bank. I am going to pull this year between the $70,000 to $90,000 bracket. I live in a beautiful apartment with my beautiful fiance with 2 cats who are pretty much like my children. And I have multiple award sites that cost like $1.25 million to make and are seen by millions of people each year. I have a portfolio of sites that are worth $15 million. And in the past 3 years, the sites I've built or helped build have been seen by 200 million unique visitors total. My current future plans are launching my own stuff, see if things hit big, and move back to the beautiful West Coast cities once my fiance finishes her degree. I am 100% supporting her financially and emotionally while she finishes her degree. It's funny because I came from a family of nothing but the highest expectations of their son. I was expected to get my BS Comp Sci by next year, an MS in Comp Sci in a few years after, and a degree in law afterwards so I could become an internet rights attorney. Life can change so much, and I've learned that it can still be for the better. I never expect to earn even my bachelor's anymore. But I learned growing up from rags to riches the following. 1. Never expect anything and appreciate everything. Never expect help from others and always make sure they understand you greatly appreciate them for their work. 2. Always do something productive. If you're not actively working in a paying job, do something to stay productive and interactive with the community. 3. Be responsible in everything you do. I missed a payment on my car loan once by 5 days. It wasn't auto-deducting yet, and I just forgot. I drove down to the bank that offered the loan, a 3-hour drive, and paid it in person. It was a lesson to myself to never miss a payment again, or else I'll have to do that every time. 4. Enjoy life. I learned early on from my mother and father that you should bust your chops always as a young adult so you can relax when you're older. I thought it was a great way to live until I realized they busted their chops from the age of 15 and they are still busting their chops almost 40 years later. Enjoy your life. Don't let work and finances dictate it. If you want something and can afford to make it happen, don't be afraid to get it and enjoy it. Wow, what an incredible story. I've done a few of these now, and looking back at some of them, the common theme I'm seeing is determination and developing the right skill set. The dream of making it big if you try isn't dead. Far from it. If you take the initiative and find ways to learn in-demand skills, you can go anywhere. These people prove it. Thank you, OP, for sharing the story and showing that success is always a possibility. Thank you all for watching today. I truly appreciate you tuning in. The channel is exploding right now in growth, and I can't express my gratitude to each of you deeply enough. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Now go have a great day. I'll see you all tomorrow. Until then, I'm Exile451. Stay beautiful, people.